All right, you're good to go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Marty Hagerman, and I'm a registered nurse. I work in oncology. I've been a nurse for 36 years, and this is the last week of a class called Smoking Cessation. The reason this class was developed was because this year, Walla Walla Community College has adopted a no smoking campus, a smoke-free campus, and which is not unique throughout the community. Federal government campuses, state campuses, all hospitals, schools, etc., are all smoke-free zones. That makes it a little difficult for the smoking culture simply because it's easy to jump outside for a few minutes and smoke a cigarette and go back to work. But employers, as well as government officials and school officials, have made a decision that smoking will not take place at their place of business. So to aid those that are attempting to quit smoking, we have developed a smoking cessation program. This program lasts for 3 weeks, and you can actually, I think, check it out or see it online on your. So if you're at Clarkston or if you're at Walla Walla Community College, this is available to you. I've tried to condense the program because I know everybody is busy, but it really is an aid to assist you in quitting smoking. I will also tell you that this is never a large class because it's a very mindful decision to quit smoking. And in order to quit smoking, you have to be very defined in your program and prepare yourself to quit smoking. Also, the body has to withdraw from nicotine, which is the most addictive substance in the cigarette. So we're going to recap what we've done over the last 3 weeks. And we're going to talk a little bit with Jennifer because she has not missed one class and has been successful in her desire to quit smoking. I will add to that piece that most people attempt to quit smoking 7 to 10 times before they're successful. I think that Jennifer maybe is a little bit more successful than that because she's done a great job. But there's a couple things that are important. You have to develop an environment that is smoke-free. So if you have access to cigarettes in your car, in your home, at your place of business, and you're trying to quit smoking, you're probably not going to be successful. The other thing is it's extremely important to tell people in that smoking culture that you have chosen to quit smoking and ask for their support. Because people that are still smoking are probably going to encourage you to smoke with them because it's a very social activity. Number 3, you need to know why you're quitting smoking. And number 4, probably most important, is that you have to be the one that decides to do it. If you're doing this for anyone else, you're likely not going to be successful. But when you make the decision to quit smoking, it will be on you, and we will support that decision. So this is the book I've been using for this class. I think it's very helpful in helping you approach a plan to quit smoking. It is free, and you can get it on the campus. If you go to the foundation on the Walla Walla Community College campus, you can access this copy. It's a free copy from NIH, National Institute of Health, and it talks a little bit about how to approach smoking cessation. We're going to recap all of the slides that we've looked at over the last couple of weeks. But this evening, I would like you to hear a success story because we had one student in this class that came every week, and at this point in the game, she's very successful in smoking cessation. And I might add, we consider smoking cessation when you've gone without smoking for 10 days. That is considered a successful attempt at quitting smoking. So, would you like to share with us a little bit about your journey through this process?
Well, when I first walked in here, I didn't have a firm time frame. In fact, I walked onto this campus with a cigarette lit, not realizing it was a smoke-free campus. And, it was something that I wanted to do because of obviously health issues and the cost associated with it, and it's disgusting, and I knew that I could quit because I had done it before, but it's just easier to have some accountability when you're doing something like that. So when I chose my date that first Friday, I made sure that I was not gonna have cigarettes in hand that day because I knew I was not gonna be able to throw the pack out, and then I would just, the plan wouldn't have worked. So, leading up to that day, I cleaned out my car, I hid all the lighters that I had stashed in my house in the car, so there wasn't that kind of like visual reminder. And then it was just one day at a time, made sure that I had lots of gum, drank lots of water, lots of tea, got out, went for walks, and just tried to make other options available during those times when I would want a cigarette. So that's worked, and when it was really difficult, Nicorette gum definitely helped get me over just a very short period where I did need a nicotine fix, but I only so far needed one.
And you use the terminology nicotine fix, and that is correct terminology because when you inhale, nicotine goes to your brain within 7 seconds, but it only lasts for about 7 seconds, and so that's when your body is once again reminding you that I need more. And many articles that you will read, and I'm telling you this is documented, that quitting smoking is almost as difficult as withdrawing from heroin. They're both very addictive drugs, and we don't think of cigarettes as a drug, but that is exactly what it is. It's nicotine. And if you'll recall from our first class, there's over 7,000 chemicals in those cigarettes to make them more appealing to the general public. They put in flavoring, they put in the menthol so that you have that mint flavor, so it makes it much more attractive. And so we know that over $12.5 billion a year is spent on advertising cigarettes, and you can probably triple that for the cost of health problems that are contributed to cigarettes. So we're just going to once again review this information tonight. I will tell you that you have done everything right. You have made a plan. You have emptied your house and your car of cigarettes. I remember you talking about going to the Tri-Cities and you would smoke a cigarette, and that was part of your activity when you were in the car. So you have changed that habit of getting in the car and smoking. You've done healthful things such as walking. You've done healthful things such as drinking water. If you'll recall, we talked about basically rinsing your body of all those chemicals. And I will just mention once again that actually urine smells like nicotine so it has a strong odor when you're rinsing your body and you're urinating more often because it's cleaning out all of those chemicals out of your body, and it has also kind of a unique appearance to it. So we know that rinsing the body of all those chemicals is really important in the process. Gum, that's that oral fixation, hand and mouth. So I always suggest little candies, or I suggest carrot sticks, celery sticks. I was with somebody the other day that came to my office that had quit smoking, and he had the turned down amount of delivery of nicotine, a cigarette. It wasn't the regular e-cigarette where you see steam. It was just inhale, and you inhaled into your lungs, and it was a small amount of nicotine. Yeah, it was interesting. I've never seen that. So he's been smoking for 47 years, and he said, you know, I know it. I can't breathe very well. So I think people are very in tune to their bodies, and there are different things that are mechanisms for assistance, but there's also mechanisms to prompt you to think about wanting a cigarette. So making the decision is a step towards better health. There's no even issue there. As soon as you quit smoking, your heart rate goes down, your blood pressure goes down, your lungs will start healing from the heat of the smoke. Smoking causes an ongoing inflammatory response in the lung tissues So as soon as you quit smoking, it's an opportunity for all of your organs to start healing, not only from the exposure to the multiples of chemicals that are in cigarettes, but also the heat of the cigarette. It's an ongoing inflammatory response. Smoking cessation is the medical term for quitting smoking. Instead of just saying you're quitting smoking, actually it's an insurance diagnosis number, and we can submit that, and then we can help you either with over-the-counter medications or just an opportunity to talk to a doctor and get some counseling about your desire to quit smoking. We also know that there's prescription medications that can be given to patients via the doctor's office. Smoking is a major cause of coronary heart disease, which leads to heart attack. We know that there is a decreased opportunity for oxygen to reach your organs and your heart. So with a person that is not in good condition, they have hypertension, they may have diabetes, they smoke, it constricts the vessels, and when it constricts the vessels, it constricts the amount of blood that is given to the heart, but also when it does that, when the blood is decreased, we know that the oxygen supply is also decreased, and that is what causes a portion of coronary heart disease. Cigarette smoking increases the disease by itself simply by building unhealthy cholesterol in the vessels to the heart. So as it builds the cholesterol in the healthy veins, it decreases the blood supply as well, thus increasing the heart rate and increasing the blood pressure. There is a higher association with different cancers. Once again, it isn't just lung cancer. Whenever we talk about smoking, we always think, I'm going to get lung cancer. But what we don't think about is the impact on the heart, which is the hypertension, the increased heart rate, the decreased blood flow to the heart, but also everything that is exposed to the chemicals from cigarettes, the increased heat from the cigarette has the potential of building cancerous cells. It isn't just, we talked about the weight of the chemicals sitting in the bladder. They have to be filtrated through the kidneys. The mouth, the nose, the sinuses, very often when we see cancer of head, neck, and throat, we think that's very potentially is a smoker. Because we're going to talk about a few added benefits. Because of the heat of the smoke, our taste buds are burned. And I talked to a gentleman that has quit smoking, and he was eating a hot sauce, and he said, I haven't tasted this for years because I was a smoker. And he said, this is really very hot. And it really illustrated that. Money, and Jennifer, you talked about that. It's a very expensive habit, and especially for the impact of your body, it's a very expensive way to kill yourself. And the other issues always are that you carry the odor of smoking. Healthier skin, the heat from the cigarettes and the smoking causes wrinkles to your skin, but it also decreases your blood supply to around your mouth. So many smokers end up with lots of scarring or lots of wrinkles around their mouth. Do you want to quit? We talked about this in the introduction today. Smoking has to be a personal decision. Many times patients come into the doctor's offices, they have 15 minutes with the physician, and the physician looks up and says, you need to quit smoking. But we don't really talk about why we need to quit smoking. And that's what this class does. It actually draws the entire picture of why we actually think it's really important that you quit smoking. And are you doing this for yourself? Write down the reasons. Why am I going to quit smoking? We have patients that say, I would just like to see my grandchildren. And I know if I continue to do this, I'm not going to have that opportunity. I would like to retire, but I'd like to retire healthy. If I continue to smoke, I will not retire healthy. So you work all these years, and then you turn 65, and you make that decision to retire, but your health is so poor, and your lungs certainly don't work, and you don't have the stamina to do the things that you thought you might want to do. And what is your goal? Are you going to quit this week? Are you going to quit by Christmas? Are you going to quit in the new year? You really have to establish a goal and make that decision, because the only person that can do that is you. What we do know about smoking is that it's highly addictive. We talked about this earlier, but in our classes. But when you're born, you have two pathways in your brain that you're born with. One is the need for water, and one is the need for food. We know that nicotine actually builds another pathway and increases the receptors in the brain for a need for nicotine. It only takes about 3 or 4 days of smoking before those receptors are prompted, and then within another couple of weeks of smoking, you now have a pathway in your brain for the addiction of nicotine. Physical addiction, we talked about inhaling smoke, and in that smoke, in the fumes of that smoke, is nicotine. It takes about 7 to 10 seconds. It goes to your brain. It goes throughout your body, and it goes to your brain. And within about 10 seconds again, your body is saying, I need more nicotine. So a person that's heavily addicted to smoking will light one cigarette off of another. Most people can typically pace themselves. I talk to a lot of patients that smoke maybe a half a pack a day, or maybe a pack a day. I looked at a record today, and somebody is smoking a pack a day. That is a lot of cigarettes every day, and they had a 27-year history. So, of course, we're seeing them for lung cancer, which is unfortunate, because when they're finally sitting in the chair in chemotherapy, they're thinking, why did I do that? And once we find out that they have lung cancer, I would say 95% of people quit smoking. But there's 5% that by the time we understand that they have lung cancer and we might treat them, I've had people say, I really enjoy this and I'm not going to quit. But I will say typically that is a patient that is an end-stage cancer patient. And that isn't for me to make a decision, but it is my responsibility to impart to them the importance of quitting smoking while they're receiving treatment. And this framed, it makes a lot of sense. If you have a lung that's already inflamed from smoking, and then you add cancer disease to those lungs, and then you add chemotherapy on top of that, it's a horrible combination. We always refer to it like dumping gasoline on a fire. So our patients that are smoking, I can honestly tell you that they do not do as well as patients that quit smoking during their treatment. We also know that smoking is kind of a habit. It's not only a culture, it's a habit. So when you get in the car or you get up in the morning, a lot of people first walk out. Now, a person that walks outside first thing in the morning when they wake up, or wake up in the middle of the night and need a cigarette, is a heavily addicted smoker. If you can wait until after breakfast or your first cup of coffee in the morning, we know that you probably have a pretty good chance of quitting when you have some incentive. It's also a coping mechanism. That's one thing I hear patients say on a regular basis. I just got a cancer diagnosis. I really can't quit smoking. But if you sit down and you have the conversation that, what we're doing is hard enough on your body, chemotherapy is very toxic. So that's, surprise, we're killing cancer cells. So when we are delivering chemotherapy, it's pretty darn important that people quit smoking. Lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer death in the United States for both men and women. That's from Cancer Facts from the American Cancer Society in 2014. Lung cancer is the most preventable form of cancer in the world. And when you think about just the United States smoking, if you go to third world countries, or you go to China, or you go to Russia or Europe, people are very heavy smokers. They really haven't adopted as stringent smoking laws as we have in the United States. So as you said earlier, you got rid of your lighters. Now, I've never thought about that. That makes an awful lot of sense. you don't have the mechanism to initiate the cigarette.
There's
And
nothing more infuriating than not having a lighter or matches around when you need a cigarette. So, but it's also little reminders too. So just to have them gone, like if I would always keep one in one spot and grab it on my way out, just to not have it there was good not to have it there.
you know, I'm going to actually put that in my notes because I've never thought about that. But that is really a great mechanism for quitting. You told me that you had quit before, and how long had you quit?
The longest was 5 years.
5 years, okay. And you didn't start smoking until you were in your 20s. Most people, we're losing the battle on young kids smoking. I can tell you, even with all of the information out there, they don't feel like their health is really going to be impacted. And
All that vaping stuff now.
yes, it is. It is. So once again, if I recall correctly, you decided you could just have one cigarette, and it sucked you right back in within a short period of time.
It was instant. I mean, I was drinking, and cigarettes were cheap and available one apiece. You didn't have to buy a pack, which made it so easy. It made it too easy.
So if I just buy one, that's all I need.
And then you remember, I really used to enjoy this. It really does go well with being in a crowded bar and having a beer.
Uh-huh.
And boom.
Well, you're my poster girl for that. You know, when you tell people it only takes one and you'll be right back on the path, does it make sense when we talk about those receptors that don't go away? So people that quit smoking 20 years later, you know, they're like, if I could just have one, I'll be fine. But you can't. No, you can't. Because once that pathway is in your brain, it's there. But, I mean, don't be discouraged by that. It's you know that it's there, and you know the tricks, and you know that you will survive without nicotine. But all of the scientists that work for the tobacco companies, that was their focus. That's why they get paid big bucks, and they did their job well. Okay, so nicotine is like any other addiction. You have to think through the process. So if you're an alcoholic, you have to say, you know, if I drink this, I am going to be drunk, and then I'm right back to where I started. If you are a shopping addict, if you have a card and you go to the phone, you have started. It's just like any other addiction. And we're human beings, and unfortunately we're set up for it because we do have weak spirits at times. So you have to think through the process. So you inhale a cigarette, it burns the bronchus, it burns the lungs. Those 7,000 chemicals are diluted and they go down into your lung bases, which is where you breathe. We all breathe from our lower portion of our diaphragm. The upper portion is just simply there. But people that smoke for a long time and impact their lungs, it's usually the lower portion of the lungs that go first. And so when you see a smoker, they have a tendency to lean forward because they're trying to use the upper portions of their lungs. But eventually, you know, that makes our blood pressure go up too high, and it also increases our heart rate, and it causes congestive heart failure. And so you have to just think through that entire process. You have to think about the weight of those chemicals coming down into your organs. So you have set up your support. Now tell me about your husband. You told me that he is also just a social smoker. But has he smoked at all since you've quit? That is amazing. That is wonderful. You've got a good support system.
He's also decided that during the period where I've decided to not smoke, that he would take that period to detox and not have any beer or anything to. So far, I haven't smoked. He has not had anything to drink, so he hasn't felt the need to have a cigarette. So we're both supporting each other through that.
That makes a big difference. Yeah, yeah, that is wonderful. So making your plan, which you've done, and then setting up your support team, which you've done. And I know you've moved here just recently, so you don't have a lot of people that you're around, but you're making the best of what you have, and you'll introduce yourself as a non-smoker. So that'll be wonderful. I think that this slide is extremely impactful because we know that cancer and all of the diseases that are caused by smoking are expanded. There's a lot of people with disease. That's emphysema, that's chronic bronchitis, that's chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, all these diseases that are affiliated with cigarettes caused 435,000 deaths last year, and another 53,000 deaths were caused directly by secondhand smoke. So that's 3 jumbo jets filled to capacity every day crashing and killing everyone on board, and that's it's horrible to think about. But that's the number of lives lost to tobacco day in and day out in just the United States. That doesn't include the world. When we're talking about, all this smoking in China and Europe, it's an incredible amount of it. Well, it's just a huge impact in the world, and people don't really. I don't think that they think about that. I think when we talk about the chemicals that are found in cigarettes, these are the things that I really don't understand how they are legal. Now, as an instructor of this program, I probably shouldn't be saying that. I should just be giving information. But it doesn't make sense to me that we can sell items that have wood varnish, insecticide DDT, which is outlawed, rat poison, nail polish remover, and then 50 known carcinogens. And a carcinogen, if you'll recall, and I know that you know this, but a carcinogen is a poison that causes cancer in the body. So when we are inhaling that into our body, it is legal to do that. And I don't know, I think there's too much money invested in this in our government to ever outlaw cigarettes or any, inhaling type of merchandise. But I really just don't understand how we can continue to sell these to people. And now we have another whole generation that's coming up that's just replacing the people that have already died from the diseases. Okay, the anatomy and physiology of lungs. And I'm not going to really go over this heavily, but if you will recall from our past classes that the heart is actually pumping fresh blood into the lungs. But in the lungs are the little cluster of grape-like organs that is where air exchange takes place. And the tar that is in the cigarettes floats to the bottom and plugs those alveoli so they can't exchange air. That's when people start getting short of breath. Even kids that start smoking, we know that they will state, I used to be able to run 2 miles and now I'm really struggling with it, because it doesn't take long for those chemicals to start impacting our organs. Diabetes, if you'll recall correctly, it actually stiffens the arteries and the vessels, okay? And then, so when our blood is going through our system and it's being pumped, nice healthy veins and hearts and lungs have this really nice soft pulsation. But as we develop diabetes and the high sugars in the body and the plaque that develops from smoking, it stiffens those arteries, so the body has to work really hard to push the blood around in the body. And so as an end result, we have a lot of pain in our lower limbs or even in our heart because it's not getting the amount of oxygen it should receive. The red blood cell carries oxygen. Carbon monoxide pushes that oxygen molecule off of the red blood cell, and it carries carbon monoxide. So it causes big problems with oxygenation of our organs. We're not going to go carbon monoxide and nicotine. We just talked about that. So we're going to move on. And so nicotine stimulates adrenaline production. So when people talk about I have a lot of adrenaline going, that actually causes the heart, that's that fight or flight response. So when nicotine is inhaled into the body, adrenaline production increases and it causes the heart to beat faster and thus raises the blood pressure. And we know that smoking impacts cholesterol. Smoking increases the production of LDL, which is bad cholesterol, which at the same time decreases our good, healthy cholesterol. So people that have hypercholesterol have to see a doctor, and more often than not, that can be determined by gender and family history. But if you throw smoking in with it, those are three bad combinations. So you have high blood pressure with high cholesterol levels. And if we talked about this last week, once that cholesterol is in the vessel, if it breaks off, it can cause either an MI, myocardial infarction, it can cause a pulmonary embolism, or it can cause stroke. And the stroke is the brain impact. So our options, and you really are the queen of options. You went cold turkey originally, and then you really had one day that it was really, really stressing you. So you went and you bought some nicotine gum, and I applaud that. I think that was such a good idea. It was either that or pick up a cigarette. So we know that nicotine gum delivers small amounts of nicotine to the body, and that just kind of gets you over that little rough spot. I actually know of several clients that have taken this class, and they keep nicotine gum with them, and they said that when they get out and they're among friends and they're having a cocktail or they're just socializing, one of the things that it just kind of drops your response to, I know I shouldn't have this cigarette. It's like drinking and eating, drinking and smoking. It just decreases your thinking process that I shouldn't be doing this. And so I think they will just snap off a little piece of that gum and put it in their mouth. And they have told me that, this is very successful for me. This is very helpful to support my desire to quit smoking. And they've gone on for 4 or 5 years with a little tiny piece of nicotine gum here and there because of those receptors and just that pleasurable feeling of thinking, I can just do this once. We do have prescriptions. Wellbutrin is a big one that we know that people are using. Chantix. I'm not here to say yay or nay, but anytime you take medications, you have the potential of side effects. And so that would be something you really need to talk to your doctor about, not just talk to your friends. And the over-the-counter, like the gum, and then cold turkey. And honestly, there's been as much success with cold turkey as there is with other things. But but really, I think it's an individual decision, and you have to do what works for you. You were talking the other day, Jennifer, that you spend about $10 per pack, and you were smoking how much per day?
It varied, but most recently I was maybe at half a pack, a little over half a pack.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty spendy. Yeah, okay. Well, and people don't have to figure out what they're going to save. You just sit down and you do the math, and it's very quick as to what you're looking at. And if you put that money away, that's a vacation. Honestly, it's a vacation for the year. We know that a ton of money is being spent on making sure that you're addicted to smoking. So the big question is, how do I quit? Well, I think that you're very successful. I truly applaud you. It always excites me when I come into a class and somebody says, I really have quit smoking. And once again, 10 days. And I believe I told you a story of a woman that came to my class. She was the only person that came to my class for one period of time. And she had been an alcoholic, she had been a heroin addict and a drug addict, and she smoked. She was hit by a car, she lost her leg, and she said, that was nothing. This is my last addiction. And she just was amazing to me, that she was just an example of human success. And she really inspired me to keep doing this class. Even when one person shows up, you think, well, it's one person that's committed to this, and that's a good thing that I can do. There are a lot of quit lines, and you can talk to people on the phone, but I think sometimes it's just better to do it one-on-one with people, because you can actually communicate. So life is good, take care of yourself, and live well and prosper. So this is the end of my class and my presentation. And I would like to know if you have anything that you would like to comment on.
I definitely think that some of the information is really important to keep in mind, like knowing exactly, obviously, that it's no secret. Cigarette smoking causes cancer. It's bad for you in so many ways, but to really be mindful of everything else that it's doing to you every time you light one and inhale it, every inhalation you take, what it's doing to you. Just to have that information and keep that in mind is really helpful in kind of giving you a kick in the butt that you need to say, like, it's not worth it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to thank you for coming and being such a great participant. Scott, thank you for your time. And if anyone would like to talk to a person about quitting smoking, they can call me. I'm available, 522-5783, area code 509. I'm found at the Cancer Center, and if there's anything I can do to help any person quit smoking, I'm always available. So this is Marty Hagerman telling you thank you for coming and participating in my class, and stay on the no smoking road. Thank you.